much like the dinosaurs, are the giant amp rigs of the past finally extinct? Metal Bass Monday. So welcome back for another week. If you haven't seen it already, earlier last week, I put up a bass lesson with a number of techniques that we've been talking about on the show. Everything from chord strumming to fast groove riffs to harmonics to tapping. So definitely go and check that out. I'll info card it up there. And I hope it does some cool stuff for you, or at least gives you some new ideas about playing. And it's also in a swing feel, so it's going to be a little different for a lot of people in that you can't strictly meter it to a metronome and that type of thing. So it's going to be playing with a little bit of a different balance. And for people on my Patreon channel, you get an extended version. It's almost double in length, where it talks about how I build a bass solo like that, or put components together, the theory behind it, how to build your own, and a little bit about scales and changing key centers and things like that. So I'm on Patreon and Subscribestar, links down below if you want to grab that. Plus you get 3 full drum tracks and the transcription for it. So hope you enjoy that. And patrons and anybody else who's tackled it, hit me up below and let me know how you're doing on it. I'd be interested to see how things are going. And so with that, I realized that I'm ripping through the patron list pretty quickly here. So I decided to start putting it up in print so that you guys can have a minute here on screen and everything. And I always greatly appreciate everybody who supports the channel. So thank you all very much. And I hope you appreciate the lesson. Some more stuff coming up here shortly. Now, this has been a big topic for a while, and especially when people ask me for gear recommendations and things like that, it seems like there's a very divided road right now in between people who are still kind of investing in the traditional head or preamp power amp setup with a couple of large cabinets type of thing, and people who are looking to miniaturize. And it's been on my mind a lot lately, and I've been kind of thinking about, really, are we at the end of seeing what used to be almost a necessary item, which was a big amp rig? I mean, especially coming up in metal and hard rock, it was like if you didn't have a big amp setup, you didn't have a show. Like that, it was just part of the thing. You weren't going to be taken seriously showing up with a combo amp or anything short of basically a stack sometimes. If you tried to show up with it, you really weren't taken seriously. You know, people would just kind of look at you like, he didn't put his money into his gear. He doesn't, you know, the gear was part of the show almost. But in our movement to different types of technology and making things lighter and more convenient and packing more features into it, and especially I find that what really, I think, pushed this forward was the beginning of things like the pod and stuff like that, where there were alternate amps, or sometimes removing amps completely from the stage, that we may be at the end of it. I don't know, but I decided to take it in 3 parts and take this apart and see what we come up with. I have one conclusion at the end you may or may not agree with, so that'll be one for us to discuss too. So let's start with heads. I think are probably the thing that has, for the most part, gone away. The idea of having to cart, and I find this is the biggest complaint usually, isn't even the size, it's weight. People don't want to drag that stuff around, which then begs the question, is technology really that great, or are we just getting lazy as hell? It's something to think about. Maybe we're just not as buff as our ancestors in the great metal genre of past. But it seems like weight of instruments and of gear has become a real concern, ironically, more amongst younger musicians than some traditionalists that are used to the horror days of dragging an SVT up, 32 stairs into an upper balcony or something. But when you talk about heads, I really get the feeling that they've kind of gone the way of the dinosaur. I mean, you look right here, and the size of these pedals and things that I've got setting here, you've got, this completely emulates a VHT amp head. This one does a Mesa and a Soldano. This has as many effects as you could possibly ask for, and cab simulators, all that type of thing. This imitates a Cornford. This is Doug Pinnick's entire rig tone built into something this big. And if you're familiar with King's X, the guy used to travel with something like 48 space racks and massive amounts of cabinets. Geddy Lee's rig. I mean, when you have that kind of technology, I really think, for the most part, I think we've seen the end of the traditional head, unless some kind of technology comes out that makes it more of a viable thing. And now we have, Class D power amps that, are about this big, this wide, and I mean, you can carry them in one hand. It's something that can fit in a gig bag. I've got 2 of those myself. I've gone to a more board-based setup. I'm not saying that heads couldn't make a comeback. I just think that we've kind of gone that way. Now, I'm waiting for even some more miniaturization, because I know a lot of guys are still using like the Axe effects and Fractal and stuff like that, and they're, 4-space rack kind of units and things. So that's still kind of a hit. You still got to have power with it. You still have to have this big unit with it. But I think that's going to pare down too. I think things like what's coming out from Neural DSP and things, it's all heading that way. It seems like that's the big change. So that moves us to cabinets. I don't know. I think they may be going away, but this is the place where, with heads, I'm not so much thinking I'll miss it. Cabinets, I'm a little different. It seems like we're really starting to pare down. I've seen things go from, obviously, like the huge, 810s and SVTs being required, or 2 cabinets, 2 410s, or a 410 and a 15 or something like that, to then like single 410s, down to even 212s sometimes. And it's just getting smaller and smaller. And I've tried out a lot of options, and I've heard 212s that actually sounded phenomenal. I use a 412 still, but it's not, to me, all about sound, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But again, there was something about having bands that had the cabs on stage. There's a visceral visual representation of just seeing speakers, even if they're not on. You just get this sense of like, this wall of sound. We do tend to hear with our eyes to a certain degree. But as far as sound goes, a lot of times there aren't even cabs on stage anymore. Like with something like this, I can get the sound of my Mesa 412, put it in an impulse inside of this, send it directly to the board, and I can hear myself through the monitors. That's starting to become a big option. I'm not really sure on this one. I kind of feel like, for a lot of guys, the in-ear monitor and the floor monitor thing is a really great option. I've seen musicians who've toured their whole life, like Rush, switch over to options like these where, all of their stuff is coming through the monitors and they're relying on them for, the most part. And, these guys have toured with the best and the largest rigs you can get, so, far be it from me to throw stones. But this is the place where I get a little bit torn. And it's because I feel like at a certain point that miniaturizing the sound, you get incredible clarity. There's no doubt about that, and that's a big upside. But losing the cabinets, you lose, to me, a part of the dynamics of playing metal and rock. And that is just that feeling of roaring sound coming at you from a direction. When something's directly in your ear, you just don't get that same effect. You don't feel that sound pressure. You don't feel that reflex hit you. Some people don't care about that, but to me, that's part of the music. It's part of the dynamic. If dynamics of volume didn't matter, then every movie soundtrack would be at the same level all the time. Why are there up and downs? Because of dynamics, because volume matters. Why did we have loudness wars forever, with everybody trying to master their stuff, which thankfully is over, to sound as loud as possible when it comes out of the speakers? It's because it makes a difference. It has an effect on people. And if I'm the performer, it has an effect, and it can affect your performance. And that's the big thing, is that I feel like speakers and standing in front of a live cabinet does change how you play. One of the times I understood this to an incredible degree is I played my first big show at an outdoor place in West Virginia called Shiley's Acres. And there were a few thousand people there. And I decided I was going to walk from the front of the stage and hot dog it a bit and go out in front of the PA. And it damn near cut my head off. The sound was so loud and I could hear myself so loud. It was intimidating. I actually moved back away because, I still hadn't even been playing that long. And hearing myself blasting at that level, I tightened up real quick. A lot of my flashy playing took a back seat for a few minutes, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm that loud? I just had no sense of it, so it changed my playing right there and immediately. And depending on the type of player you are, this could have an effect on you. If you're a really proud of your skill, flashy player, having incredible volume and stuff may make you just go over the top and play more and shred it up and do that type of thing. If you're not quite as secure as I was at the time, it may make you go, I gotta stick in the pocket here a little bit and kind of rein it in because mistakes are going to be unbelievably loud. So it can have an effect. Just hearing how it fills up the room and having an understanding of that could change how you interact. If you're really a player who interacts with the other instruments and interacts with your own sound and how it's being perceived, your sound, not just in EQ, but how it fills a room, does affect you if you're really in that moment. And that's where I don't know what may happen with speakers. For me, I still really like having that. Even if I have a fantastic, really good monitor set on stage, even if I have to push it way back, I like having a cabinet back there. I like having a place on the stage I can retreat to and just feel that thing hitting me in the face, because there's just something about feeling that gut punch from a loud set of great cabs that just almost being able to knock myself back a little bit. It's that sense of power. It's a physical experience. It's not just a quality of sound experience. It's a sensory experience. And maybe that is going to be lost. Maybe newer players who haven't grown up in that kind of environment and they started on these things, this is what it means to them. And they're not as concerned about it, or it's just become a lost thing and they just aren't going to care because they don't know. So that one I'm not sure about. I do know, though, the speakers are seeing the same trend. We're seeing smaller and smaller and lighter, and the Neo speakers were a big thing with that kind of stuff. You never know how this might tilt, but I think that definitely, if not smaller, the weight thing is here to stay. I think that if you first pick up an amp and it's really light, it's going to be hard, no matter how good it sounds or what kind of effect it might have, for people to want to go, sure, I'm willing to take another 50 pounds on. We're fundamentally lazy animals, so I don't think the weight is going to come back. But as far as size and as far as what it's able to put out, just sheer wattage, I think there may still be an audience for it. But I'd be interested to, hear what you think. Are you still, kind of touring around when you can with bigger rigs? Do you prefer cabinets? Are you still a hidden cabinet person? Why do you still make the choices that you do? Or have you moved on to something and you couldn't care less about the rest of it? The technology's doing what it needs to. For me, I don't see myself letting go of my large cabinets once in a while. And again, I still have a little bit of a heart for the old school thing. I still like going to a show and seeing a bunch of cabinets. There's just something very rock and roll about it, about seeing all those amps. But then again, that was kind of the scenery before they had massive backdrops and things like that. So you never know, one or the other. But I think it's gonna be a lot to pry my big cab out of my hands. So we'll see how that goes. But lighter speakers, I'm willing to push whatever I need to and drag it around if it's the right sound. But if they cut 20 pounds off of it, I don't think I would be that heartbroken. So let me know what you think. hit me up in the comments below, and I'm definitely interested on this one because I think it's one of the pieces of the industry people aren't talking as much about, even though massive changes are happening to it. So I'll catch you down there. Now I'm going to introduce a new segment. This isn't, although I call it Of the Week, it's not going to be every week, but I see a lot of the other guys in the genre who do gear shows and things like that, and they do like a suggestions of the week or my ideas of the week or my recommendations. Each week they toss out a few things that they recommend or something. So every once in a while I get seemingly told from a lot of different sources, man, you gotta check this thing out, it's so great, it's so awesome. Sometimes it's music or a piece of gear, or there's an incredible amount of internet hype. It's usually coming from forums, which we all know are disaster areas, and things like that where people are just like, oh, you have to check this thing out, and it really becomes trendy or something. And I check it out and I don't get it. So I'm going to do a slightly different segment, and I bring to you the suggestion of the week. And it's where I just go, I don't get it. And maybe there are some people who are too worried about following a trend to disagree, and you can find a home here. So my suggestion of the week that keeps getting suggested to me for probably about 2 years now, as far as I can remember, is going to be pre-Cowboys from Hell Pantera. Pantera, I get it. Legendary band, dime bag, God amongst men. And let's face it, when, the weaker and whinier forms of music came and assaulted our fair metal kingdom from the, 90s than what I like to call the medieval dork ages, these guys basically held metal up for the most part. They were still the ones flying the flag. They were still able to put out top-selling albums and do good tours and everything. And God bless them for it. You can't take it away from them. But let's face it, before Cowboys, some people hit the Babe Ruth strike on their first attempt. These guys just needed a warming up period. And that's what those albums were. Let's face it, guys, and especially with Dime being gone, I know we all want to canonize him and everything, but we're really spit polishing a turd here. It's just not good. There's nothing special about it. It's really kind of weak. And even the first stuff with Phil in it. So, yeah, I know. Throw the fruit and the stuff. I don't get it. I'm not going to get it. I tried to get it. It's gone. It's just weak. But there you have it. I tried. Couldn't do it. So, my suggestion is, if you're on the fence about it or you haven't done it, skip it. That's my suggestion of the week. So with that wrapped up, again, go check out that bass solo. Hope you get some stuff out of that for you. Thanks again to my patrons. Hope you're enjoying the additional content. And let me know what you think about the amps below. And throw bricks or whatever you need to about the Pantera stuff. And yeah, some new gear demos and stuff coming up here soon, and a couple of surprises. I think it's going to be cool stuff. So, as always, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it, and I will see you on the next one.